What's up, scholars? Welcome back to another video. Today I am going to be ranking all of the arcs in One Piece to the very present arc of Egghead, because now that I'm caught up and have to wait for chapters to come out, we're just going to be doing a lot of miscellaneous One Piece videos. So it's going to be great. We're going to have a lot of fun with it. But the last time I ranked anything was back when I got to the time skip. So I did return to South Body and ranking of all the pre-time skip arcs in one video. That was a long time ago. I don't even remember where I ranked any of them. I should have gone back and rewatched it just to see where I ranked everything, but I didn't. It's fine. We're gonna do a new ranking system anyways for this video. We're gonna talk about some of them all ranked, because I have all of my rankings already determined, because I sat down and I thought about where I was going to rank them, and this is my ranking system. So you have the top tier, which is the S tier, which is just perfection. It's perfection. I enjoyed every bit of it. It was amazing. You have near perfect right underneath it, and then it goes down from there. So it's like you have perfection, near perfect, wonderful. You have great, good, okay, and then there's this one special tier down at the very bottom all by itself called we don't talk about this except that we have to. So I only talk about this arc because I have to. So that's my ranking system. Pretty much. That's my ranking system as a whole. So we're just going to go ahead and start, and I'm going to show you where all of these are going to be ranking off, starting with Romance Dawn. Romance Dawn is a great start to One Piece. It kind of sets up some of the characters for us, introduces us to Luffy, his backstory with Shanks, and kind of the introduction to him, Kobe, and to Zoro. I really like the first arc, but I mean, it's a solid start, but I'd still say I would put it in the B tier, which is wonderful. It is a wonderful arc, but it's definitely not like top tier for me. And next we have Orange Town, which of course is our introduction to the king himself, Buggy, which should earn it a much higher position, but in the grand scheme of things, with all of the arcs considered, I'm being a little bit more picky, and while I do like Orange Town, it gets a solid C tier. It was great, but there are so many better arcs than it. Then we get to Syrup Village. Syrup Village is one that I really enjoy. A lot of people don't like Syrup Village that much, which is really surprising to me. As I went through my One Piece journey, it was really surprising that people didn't just automatically love Usopp from the get-go. I loved him from day one, and I was so confused why nobody else seemed to love him from the get-go, that it took them a while before they really got attached to Usopp. I didn't understand that. I loved him from the second I saw him. He's fantastic. I love his little arc. I love Syrup Village, so it gets a B tier. Clawhador kind of ticks it down a little bit, but it's a B tier. It's a really solid arc. Then we get to Baratier, where we are introduced to the best boy ever, Sanji, and Baratier earns itself the first A tier on this list. I could have put it at S tier, but I'm being picky, so Baratier is going at A tier. There's so much good in this arc, from the fight between Mihawk and Zoro to Luffy meeting Sanji and Zeph's story together, and everything that entails. All of it was so good. I loved every bit of this. It was just, there's something that was just kind of like missing a little bit with me for this arc, because there are so many better arcs to come regarding Sanji. So Baratier gets an A tier. And alongside Baratier with an A tier, this might be a little bit of a shock to some people, because most people regard this arc in a very high manner, which they should, but Arlong Park also gets an A tier for me. The moment with Luffy and Nami, the Luffy help me, the iconic scene, so good and powerful, and we're building our crew together. You get to walk to Arlong Park, you get all these awesome, incredible fights. And And again, as much as I love this arc, and as much as I could put this in S tier, I'm trying to not just put everything in the top tier, in that perfection tier. Though Arlong Park is very close to it, there are a few arcs that I consider either on par with it or that are better than it. So it's saying solid A tier, probably at the very beginning, like very top of the A tier. And to round out the East Blue Saga, we have Logtown, which is a solid B tier for me. It was a wonderful, wonderful arc. Buggy was great. The introduction of Dragon that we get there, Luffy smiling, and we get Smoker there. Oh, there's so much good there as we're preparing to go to the Grand Line. Lots of lore starts getting built in Logtown, and I just absolutely love it. B tier. So that is how the East Blue Saga is ranked. You have a couple A tiers, couple B tiers, and a C tier. Very, very solid first arc, first saga of One Piece. And now we're getting to the Alabasta Saga, where things start picking up, because we start off with Reverse Mountain. Reverse Mountain honestly would have been lower to me if Laboon wasn't there, but because Laboon is there and his story tugs at my heart, because later, Reverse Mountain is a B tier to me. It is a solid B tier. I really love that story, and I love it because of how it connects further down the line, which is what raises it up for me. Then we get Whiskey Peak. I'm personally not the biggest fan of this arc. I still didn't like the Luffy Zoro fight. It was just an okay arc for me, so it gets a D tier. This is my first D tier, and I'm very sorry about this. But Whiskey Peak is a D tier. I know we get the introduction of Robin in this, and you know, we're starting to build the tension with Baroque Works and Crocodile, but there's so many better arcs. Like Little Garden, which whenever I first, because I watched, yeah, this was when I was still watching One Piece, like just all the way through for the first time. I was watching this and I was just crying, laughing, because there were dinosaurs in One Piece, and I had absolutely no clue. I had no idea that there were going to be dinos in One Piece, and seeing them in Little Garden threw me so off guard, and I just automatically loved that arc even more. I love it. It's so good. The fights are on there. Zoro's funny moments and his loyalty to Luffy is great in that arc, and we get Sanji doing some of the best undercover work, talking to Crocodile. It's great. B tier. And then we get to Drum Island. Chopper's story, his backstory had me crying. You'll notice that the more I cry during an arc, the higher it gets ranked. So that's just, the more I cry and am emotionally attached to an arc, the higher it gets ranked for me, because that's how invested and attached I am to it. So Drum Island, A tier. I was crying about Chopper and Dr. Hiroluke. That whole thing was so good, and I loved it so much. Wapol was like the only downgrade to that arc. I don't care for Wapol. I know he's actually relevant in the current events of the story, but I just can't do it with him. But that's why it's an A tier. That's when we get to Alabasta, and I'm struggling back and forth with this one, because part of me says just keep it in an A tier, but there's another side that's just like, it deserves that first S tier spot in One Piece, and I think I'm gonna put it in S tier. You have Vivi and her amazing story, her determination, everything that Luffy and the others do for Vivi, the fights that happen. You have one of Usopp's big moments when he's fighting the little mole lady and he's with Chopper and he stands up for Luffy's dream. You have Sanji with an incredible fight with Bon Clay, but also Sanji being a fantastic undercover agent and being like Mr. Prince to Crocodile, fooling Crocodile, saving everybody. And you have like Luffy fighting Crocodile, being silly and goofy, and then coming in being serious. You had the introduction of the poneglyphs and all that. We have Robin and starting to kind of get her on the crew. You have so many amazing moments. You have a great fight with Zoro. You have a great fight with Nami. I mean, it's just all so good. It's all so good. And then the goodbye to Vivi made me cry so much. So yes, Alabasta deserves the first S tier spot in my ranking list. I love it. And that concludes the Alabasta saga. So we've got some highs and some lows, but overall, pretty solid. That moves us into the Skypia Saga. The Jaya arc, solid B. Solid B tier arc. I love it very much. So I love Luffy standing up for himself and Zoro and him not fighting back, because that's actually a better move. The implications of that, meeting Blackbeard for the first time, Luffy's fight with Bellamy, all good stuff. All good stuff. And then we get to Skypia, which a lot of people think is such a boring arc, and I don't understand it. I don't understand it because I love it. I don't know why. I love Skypia so much. I love that arc. It's an S tier for me. The poneglyphs, the history behind it, the lore, the lore, everything, the fights. You have such awesome moments fighting wise from everybody, especially like Sanji and then Luffy fighting Enel, the surprise Pikachu face from Enel, that's iconic. So many fantastic moments. Luffy being in the sky, which again is such a cool little bit of foreshadowing. Everything about the arc, I love it. I love it so much. S tier. That's the only part of Skypia. That's the two Skypia sagas, and both of them are pretty high. Which leads us to Water 7 Saga, which Long Ring Long Land is the only F tier. It is the arc that I don't want to talk about, but I'm forced to talk about. I just don't like this arc. I didn't like it when I first saw it because I saw the anime of it first before I read it. Reading it was better, but I already didn't like it because of how the anime handled it, that it just ruined the entire arc for me. I didn't really like the plot of it. The only good thing to come out of that arc was Aokiji's introduction, but it's bottom tier for me. We're moving on to Water 7. Water 7, S tier. Absolutely S tier. Everything from the Going Merry to the Luffy Usopp fight, which just I was in so much distress. I was sobbing. CP9 starting to step in. You have Iceberg's connection. You have Frankie's introduction. Everything just beautiful. S tier. 10 out of 10. Which leads to Enies Lobby, which is another S tier. 10 out of 10. Robin's backstory, them declaring war on the world government, coming for Robin, rescuing her, not giving up on her, just all the fights that were in there, and then you get the Going Merry and the goodbye to the Going Merry, like, easy S tier. Then we get to post Enies Lobby, which is, in my opinion, a solid B. I really like some of the reveals we got in post Enies Lobby. It builds on the lore and the connection to the world that these characters have, especially Luffy at the time. Really loved it. Loved seeing Kobe again. And Usopp rejoined the crew, and that whole moment was just so amazing from start to finish. So yes, B tier. Which wraps up Water 7 pretty nicely. It has the lowest ranked tier of the entire list, but also two of the highest ranked tiers in the entire list. So it kind of evens out. And that brings us to what? Thriller Bark, I believe? Yeah, and Thriller Bark, solid B. There were parts I liked about it, there were parts I didn't like about it, but overall it was amazing. And we get Kuma. We get Nothing Happened. We get some really good moments here that I just personally enjoyed. There were some moments that I didn't enjoy. But we got Luffy shoving a zombie into the ground, and we got Brooks' introduction and his backstory. Shoots it up higher. Solid B. That's when we get to the Paramount War arc, the Marineford Saga. I said Paramount War arc, it's the saga, Paramount War Saga. Starting with Sabaody. Sabaody wrecked me from start to finish. It wrecked me. Hachi coming back, the whole discrimination, the celestial dragons being introduced, which the worst generation being introduced. You had the supernovas coming in, you had all of these good things happening. Sabaody, with as much as it hurt me at the end, it's very close to S tier, but I'm gonna give it an A tier. Probably the top of A tier now. It would probably go before Arlong Park. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Gut-wrenching, but amazing. Then we have Amazon Lily, which I liked. It was a good arc. It brought in a lot of things that we needed to know. It gave us Boa and her backstory and how, again, it's connected to everything that's going on in the world. And we get Luffy finally hearing the news about Ace. So a lot of good things, a lot of good plot happening. But I'd say it's a solid C tier. It's a good C. Not the greatest, but it's definitely not the worst. It's kind of like happily in the middle there at a C. Then we get to Impel Down. Solid, like top of the B tier list. Top of the B tier. So fun from start to finish. Some things brought it down for me a little bit, but I mean, you had Buggy and Luffy and Crocodile. Those three alone just made it a great arc for me. You had Bon Clay in there, you had Mr. 3, you had Eva's introduction, you had a lot of good things there. There are some things that I was like, okay, but some things I was like, that's great. Buggy automatically, just brings it up to a B because it's Buggy and he's great. So yes, Impel Down is a solid B. Marineford, A tier. Beautiful, beautiful A tier. I love the war. I love Crocodile wanting to smoke with everybody. You have Luffy trying to get to Ace, everybody stopping him, everybody trying to help him get to them. And you have that confrontation with Garp and Ace, and then Garp and Luffy, which I just love because it hurts me. And then you have the whole thing with Ace, and then you have Whitebeard's speech about the One Piece and Blackbeard coming. I mean, it's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. A tier. A tier. And then we have Post-War. Post-War, I was getting close to putting it in S tier, but I decided not to. It could be like an honorary S tier for me at the end of all of this, if I change my mind. Because my goodness, did I just absolutely love Post-War. I loved seeing the three brothers together, seeing them growing up together, the promises that they were making, how they lived their lives, and Jinbei and Luffy. Jinbei and Luffy, when they're together and Luffy is falling apart and Jinbei's the one to bring Luffy back together. And Luffy saying, I still have my crew. Oh my goodness. I think it's just so underrated. I think that's such an underrated arc. So I don't see people talking about it as much. So, I said honorary S tier. I think I am going to give it an S tier. I think I changed my own mind about it. Post-War is going in S tier because actually Post-War ended up hurting me a lot more than Marineford because of the aftermath that followed, ending with Luffy's decision to split up for 2 years. So that kind of rounds out the Marineford Saga, leading us to Fisherman Island Saga and like the Return to Sabaody. Return to Sabaody, it was okay. There were some fun moments, but it wasn't in any means like a fantastic arc or anything. So it's a D. It's a D tier. It's an okay arc. It was a good reintroduction to our characters after the time skip, but it was just alright. Fisherman Island. Oh my gosh. I struggled with this one a lot too, because the lore, the history, and the plot that we get by itself is so heavy that it could have brought it up to A tier, S tier easily. You have Otahime and Fisher Tiger on top of that, plus Shirahoshi and the king and his sons, and that whole debacle would have brought it to an S tier, but we had that Weasel Vanderdecken and Caribou, so it's an A tier. That was his name, right? Vanderdecken? So Fisherman Island is a solid A tier. I absolutely loved it. I love this arc so much. Which leads us to the Dressrosa saga with Punk Hazard. Punk Hazard was alright. There was a lot of really good moments, but there was some kind of slower moments. It's a solid C tier arc, but I mean, Law and Luffy's alliance just makes up for half of the bad, or not even bad, just kind of the slower aspects to this arc. I love their alliance so much. It's so funny. They're best friends, but Law's never gonna admit that, and I love it. But we get to Dressrosa. I love Dressrosa. I know a lot of people think that the arc is super long, and it is. It's a long arc. I get it. But I loved every bit of it. I love Dressrosa so much. There was a few parts that I wasn't as like in tune to and attached to, but overall I absolutely love the story and all the themes and the symbolism behind this story. And Doflamingo is a fantastic villain, so Dressrosa is A tier, easily A tier. And then we get into the Whole Cake Saga. Zoe, A tier. I almost put it in S, but I didn't. I mean, the lore, the theory crafting that you can do just from Zoe alone. You get the Raizo is safe moment. Then you get this whole debacle with Sanji leaving. And it kind of builds up to this kind of mystery, and we're splitting up the crew, and we get the red poneglyphs that Robin is looking at and everything. I mean, everything starts kind of coming together at Zoe. Fantastic arc, beautiful arc. I love it so much. A tier, easily. Then we get to Whole Cake. S tier. I mean, easy. The easiest S tier ranking I would ever give goes to Whole Cake. I mean, did y'all really expect anything else from the arc centered around Sanji? Did you really expect me to give it anything other than a perfection score? That arc was fantastic. I was emotionally distraught the entire way through. My emotions were all over the place. I was sad, I was happy, I was angry, I was devastated, and I was just so hopelessly depressed for Sanji and Luffy. I love that arc. I love that saga, or I love that arc with Sanji and confronting his past, but also his feelings and his nature and how he wants to live his life versus how he thinks he has to, or how he thinks he is going to because of his past or because of his parents. It's so good. S tier. S tier. And then we had the Reverie arc. The Reverie arc is an S tier as well, because so much information is just crammed into those small little bits of chapters. And we get the introduction of Emu with the 5 elders and that whole craziness. S tier. S tier. Easy. And then after we get out of the Whole Cake Saga, we get to Wano, and Wano's just like its own thing. Wano to me is an A tier, like high A tier. It is a beautiful arc. Beautiful arc from start to finish. Lots of symbolism, lots of lore, lots of amazing characters, amazing character moments, character sacrifices, and then one of the craziest reveals for a person, for a devil fruit ever during the height of battle. I love it. I love it, I love it, I love it, I love it so much. It's great. And now, that leads us to the final arc that is currently ongoing, which is Egghead. And already, it's an S tier. It is an S tier already. Egghead itself, just like being there with the lore, the technology, the history, getting to learn what is happening, that already brings it up so high to me. But then we get, but Kuma. I mean, guys, come on, it's Kuma. Of course, it's an S tier. Kuma's backstory, and then him and Bonnie's relationship, Bonnie figuring out who Luffy is, Luffy and Sanji battling it out to protect Vegapunk, and then this cliffhanger that we're at right now with the 5 elders. It's insane. It's so insane, but it's so good. S tier. Easily. I love this story so much, and I just adore it. So many good, so many amazing moments. Let me know what y'all think of my list and how it compares to your list. Where would you rank these arcs in comparison to like how I've ranked them? Where does it align with yours? Where does it differ? Let me know down in the comments below. This was just a fun little video for me, just to kind of sit back and be a little retrospective about the story I've read so far, and to kind of get me engaged to see where it's going to go with everything that is built up to this moment. Just nice to sit back and relax and just rank based off of what I liked about it. Other than that, that's all for this video. So if you liked it, please let me know down below, and I will be doing a reaction to the newest One Piece opening on Friday. Patreon gets early access to it. It'll be up way earlier in the week, probably. It's already up on Patreon by the time this video is hitting YouTube. So if you want early access to my videos and you want the full video of the One Piece opening, because I'm gonna have to end up editing some of it out for YouTube for copyright purposes, if you want the full video for that reaction, make sure you go check out my Patreon. The link will be down in the description and in the comments below, so go check it out. Other than that, thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you next time, scholars. Bye!